Rudy Giuliani has teamed up with a guy named Vernon Jones. Vernon Jones, lifelong Democrat who turned Trump supporter and then turned Republican, is now running for governor of Georgia. Vernon Jones is a black male. Well, the gubernatorial candidate, Vernon Jones, had to physically step in between a heated discussion between Giuliani and a CNN reporter. This was at an Atlanta fundraiser where Giuliani came to basically endorse Vernon Jones. Now, why is Giuliani endorsing Vernon Jones? Because obviously Vernon Jones is paying him. Giuliani needs money, and there's a money trail somewhere, I guarantee you that. So here's part of it.
Is a Democrat appointed by a Democratic county leader. If they had ruled for Rudy Giuliani or Donald Trump, Andrew Cuomo wouldn't have appointed them anywhere. They'd have been shunned in New York. Do you have any idea what happens if you support Donald Trump in a left-wing place? You lose your job. You have your children threatened. You have to move. I expected that decision. It's intellectually dishonest. They say I lied. They don't look at the affidavits I offered to them that shows I'm telling the truth. It's part of the cover, and it's part of the problem we have when we have a one-party place like New York. It's the reason we have so much crime. The crime is Cuomo's crime and de Blasio's crime. They run the state. They run the state like it's a dictatorship.
I want to step in for a second.
Okay, here we go now. Here comes the savior, Vernon Jones, to save his guy, Giuliani. Now, I want to remind you that Vernon Jones is probably more extreme than Donald Trump. I actually know Vernon Jones. I've had him on my radio show. There was a time in his political career he actually had common sense. His common sense is completely gone now. Okay, Vernon Jones is a black Republican. I'm okay with that. We can have a good faith debate about policies. I have no issue with black Republicans other than policy, but I do have issues with sellouts. And here's what Vernon Jones said.
I want you to ask the Attorney General Garland. I want you to ask him, why is it that he wants to come to Georgia and investigate Georgia's so-called Jim Crow laws? But he won't investigate or even ask for a forensic audit in the 159 counties in Georgia. He won't even look at Stacey's law, how it was used in our elections versus state law. Now that's a fact, and that's an undisputed violation of the Constitution.
No, it's not. Vernon Jones, former CEO of DeKalb County, former state senator, former sheriff candidate, US Senate candidate. Every time he has run for office, he ran as a Democrat until he found a way, a path to power through the Republican Party and becoming a Trumpite to get there. He's incorrect about the Georgia Constitution. He's also incorrect about the audits. Georgia went through multiple audits for the election. The Georgia Constitution does not prohibit individuals from voting by way of a voter box or a vote box, whatever you want to call it. There's no prohibition. The local board of elections, they're able to make these determinations by statute. The law allows it. Now they have changed the law to restrict voter access for black and brown folks, people that would normally work a 9 to 5, souls to the polls. All of that has been impacted, and Vernon Jones supports those policies that impact voter access for black and brown people in the state of Georgia. But they do something that's quite typical. I've heard almost every black Republican reference a slave term or a control mechanism for black people if black people disagree with them. You hear black Republicans say, if a black person votes for a Democrat, they're on the Democratic plantation. Well, here's the reality. When a Democrat is president, black people win economically. They get paid more per year based on household median income than when a Republican is in office. Unemployment rate drops more significantly when a Democrat is in office for black folks, and higher education access and high school graduation rates increase when a Democrat is in office as it relates to the black community. So there's a reason why black folks vote for Democrats. Now, here's what Vernon Jones said about black folks that watch CNN.
See, here's CNN, because CNN is about controlling Negroes. That's what it's saying. Controlling Negroes. That's what CNN is about. They don't want people of color to have conservative thoughts. He's here to keep me running and keep me from being the governor of the state. Why? Because liberals, they do not want blacks thinking for themselves.
So liberals don't want black people thinking for themselves, but Vernon wants you to think like him, okay? Here's what's ironic about this whole thing. Vernon Jones, he said that he's here to stop me from running and becoming governor of Georgia. No, Vernon, they were there for Giuliani. They weren't even there for you. You were just the side dish. He was the main course. My sister, you know Vernon. Y'all are from the same county.
Yes.
Tell the truth.
I was raised in DeKalb County, Georgia, for which Vernon Jones was our CEO, which is kind of like the mayor, the chief executive officer. That's the only sort of executive administrative position that we have in DeKalb County. And speaking of misleading statements, he said that you're not allowed to have conservative views being a black person. And Vernon Jones, he was very outspoken as the sort of centrist conservative Democrat. He had a picture of the Confederate General Robert E. Lee on his desk. This was over a decade ago that this was out in the news. It was known that he held conservative views as a Democrat. So he had a photo of the Confederate General Robert E. Lee. He voted for George Bush twice while he was the CEO of DeKalb County. And so the issue here, as you said, is not so much about his conservatism and not being able to espouse those views, because quite frankly, a lot of those views that he shares that he espouses are shared amongst a wide array of black people. We're not a political monolith. We're not an ideological monolith. We run the gamut of being radical. I consider myself a part of a black radical tradition. He's a conservative. And yet he was allowed to do that. But this is about being able to stand out, because you're not necessarily going to stand out and amass power doing the sort of typical centrist Democratic things that he was doing while he was in office. So he's making a political play, and this is a performance. So much of our national politics is about political performance and doing certain signifiers. And so he has his Make America Great hat on in the background. He's not talking about policy. He's just talking about, again, these things that will rile up people to go vote for him so that he can get support during the gubernatorial race.
Very well said, and I didn't mean to put you out there like that. And I must admit, I'm also from DeKalb County. I just wanted to feel safe after you said it, okay? All right.